The desert sun had long vanished behind the crimson cliffs, but its heat still clung to the earth like a curse. Night fell over the Arizona plains, a wild expanse of sand, stone, and silence broken only by the sighing wind that swept through the canyon like a ghostly hymn. The last embers of a dying campfire flickered against the cool dark, their glow casting shadows that danced on the sharp angles of the rancher's face. John stood motionless, the revolver heavy in his hand as the ground began to hum beneath his boots. The sound was faint at first, like distant thunder, but growing louder, steadier, unmistakable. Horses. The cavalry. The Apache girl, Naya, sat frozen beside the dying fire. Her eyes flickered toward the darkness beyond the ridge. She knew that sound too well. She had heard it before. When her brother fell, when her camp burned, when her world turned to ashes. John cursed under his breath. Damn fools never quit hunting, do they? Naya didn't answer. Her bound wrists trembled slightly. You should leave, she said quietly, voice tight with fear she was trying hard to hide. They won't spare you if they find me here. John glanced toward the trail leading away from the canyon. He could mount his horse and ride. By dawn, he'd be miles from this place. It would be easy. Just walk away, pretend none of this happened. But his gut twisted at the thought. He'd done enough walking away in his life. He'd watched too many people die while he did nothing. He holstered the revolver. Who's leading that patrol? Naya hesitated. Lieutenant Harlow. Red beard. Hard eyes. John froze. He knew that name. Harlow had been through these parts before. Loud, proud, and merciless. He called it justice. John had seen the man's handiwork once, after a raid near Dry Creek. He'd left the women hanging in the trees as a warning. Hell, John muttered, jaw tightening. You weren't lying. I told you, she whispered. They won't stop until I'm dead. For a long moment, John said nothing. The only sounds were the restless wind and the horse's approach, closer now, echoing off the canyon walls. He could almost see their lanterns glowing faintly through the dust. He knelt beside her, knife in hand. Naya flinched. What are you? He sliced through the ropes around her wrists. The frayed ends fell to the dirt. Get to the barn, he said sharply. There's a trap door behind the hay bins. Crawl inside, stay quiet, and don't come out until I say. She stared at him, disbelief flashing in her eyes. Why are you helping me? John paused, his face half shadowed by firelight. Because I'm tired of burying people I could have saved. She wanted to speak, to protest, but no words came. She rose slowly, rubbing her bruised wrists, then turned toward the ranch in the distance. John followed her with his eyes until she disappeared into the dark. Then he turned back to the fire, letting it burn down to embers. He kicked dust over the coals, dousing the glow. The night swallowed everything, just in time. The first of the cavalry riders appeared over the ridge, their torches bobbing like fireflies. John could make out the shape of a dozen men, all armed and riding hard. At their head rode Harlow, his red beard gleaming in the lamplight, his voice barking orders. John stepped forward into the open, his stance calm, revolver at his hip. Halt. Harlow's shout split the night. Identify yourself. Name's John McCollin, he replied. This here's my land. The riders slowed, their horses snorting clouds of steam into the cold air. Harlow studied him for a long moment, then dismounted. His boots crunched over the dry ground. McCollin, he said, recognition dawning. Heard of you. Used to ride with the volunteer scouts, didn't you? Used to, John said flatly. Harlow gave a humorless chuckle. Then you know why we're here. We're tracking an Apache fugitive. Girl about 17. Small. Fast. Stole a horse. John met his eyes steadily. Haven't seen anyone like that. Harlow tilted his head, smiling faintly. You sure about that? I don't lie on my own land. The lieutenant took a slow step forward, his hand resting on the butt of his pistol. You're a decent man, McCollin. Don't make me doubt that. We've got orders to clear this territory. If she's hiding here, and you're covering for her, that makes you a traitor. The word hung in the air like smoke. John didn't move. I said I haven't seen her. Harlow studied him, then gave a small nod. Search the property. The soldiers began to spread out, torches sweeping across the yard. John's heart pounded as they neared the barn. He could see faint movement inside, a shadow shifting in the dark. Naya was there, somewhere under the hay, silent as the earth itself. He couldn't let them find her. Lieutenant, he said quickly. If she's who you say she is, what's she done to deserve all this trouble? Harlow turned to him, irritation flashing in his eyes. She's Apache. That's reason enough. The words hit John like ice. He saw again the trees at Dry Creek, the smoke, the bodies. Reason enough, he repeated quietly. Harlow sneered. You've gone soft, McCollin. He waved a hand toward the barn. Bring the torches. If she's in there, we'll smoke her out. Before they could move, John drew his gun. The click of the hammer echoed like thunder. Put those torches down, he said evenly. Every soldier froze. Harlow turned, disbelief twisting his face. You've lost your damn mind. Maybe, John said, but I ain't losing my soul tonight. For a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. The wind whispered through the canyon, stirring the dust between them. Then, slowly, Harlow raised his hand and signaled the men to stand down. His eyes never left John's. You'll regret this, Harlow said softly. We'll be back. John lowered the gun slightly, but his voice stayed hard. Then ride fast, Lieutenant. Because if I see your torches again, I'll aim to put 'em out for good. Harlow stared at him for another heartbeat, then spat in the dirt. Mount up, he barked. The cavalry turned, their torches fading into the distance, swallowed by the desert night. When silence finally returned, John exhaled slowly and holstered his revolver. His knees felt weak. The smell of smoke and horse sweat lingered in the air. He walked toward the barn, pushing the door open gently. It's over, he called softly. You can come out now. From the shadows, Naya emerged, eyes wide and glistening with disbelief. You stood against them, for me. John shrugged, trying to sound casual though his hands still trembled. Guess I did the unthinkable. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. They'll come back. I know, he said quietly. But until then, you've got a place to rest. For a long moment, she just looked at him, this weary man with haunted eyes who had chosen compassion over hatred. Then she nodded, whispering, Thank you, cowboy. The wind sighed through the rafters, carrying her words into the endless dark. And as dawn crept over the desert, John McCollin stood outside the barn, rifle in hand, watching the horizon, not as a rancher or soldier, but as a man who'd finally remembered what mercy felt like. John McCollin stood there, a tall figure of grit and weariness. His broad shoulders sagged beneath the weight of the day, his hands rough from years of breaking horses and mending fences. A Colt revolver hung loosely in his grip, gleaming faintly in the firelight. Before him, on her knees, was the girl he'd caught not 2 hours ago, barefoot, ragged, and proud despite the blood that streaked her cheek. Her wrists were tied with a length of rawhide rope, her dark hair tangled from the chase. She couldn't have been more than 18. Her skin was the color of sun-warmed earth, her eyes deep and defiant even through exhaustion. The wind tugged at her torn buckskin dress, and the scent of smoke and sage hung between them. John's horse snorted behind him, stamping nervously. The land was quiet now, too quiet. He didn't like it. He cleared his throat, his voice rough from disuse. You were running like the devil himself was on your heels, girl. She didn't answer. She just kept her gaze on the fire, her chest rising and falling quickly. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but steady. I wasn't running from you. John frowned. That's so. You stole my horse. That makes it my concern. I borrowed it. Her lips quirked in a faint, humorless smile. Didn't plan to keep it. Her words caught him off guard. He expected fear, tears maybe, but not sarcasm. Not calm defiance. Something in her tone. It was the sound of someone who had already seen death, and stopped fearing it. John took a step closer, the dirt crunching beneath his boots. You know what they do to horse thieves out here. She lifted her chin. Yes. Her answer came quick, too quick. There was no plea, no tremble, no flinch. She knew what was coming, or thought she did. That kind of courage wasn't born from ignorance. He studied her for a long moment, his mind spinning. Apache, he thought. Her people had raided the neighboring ranches weeks ago, burned wagons, stolen cattle, killed a boy he'd known since he was a lad. He could still hear the echo of his neighbor's grief. And now here she was, an Apache girl, on his land, with his horse. Every instinct told him to finish it. To pull the trigger and walk away. But something about her stopped him cold. She looked up at him finally, her eyes catching the firelight, dark pools of pain and strength. Please, she said quietly, her voice breaking just enough to sound human. Just make it fast. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. He froze. He'd heard men beg before. Bandits, soldiers, dying friends, but never like that. There was no fear in her tone, no desperation. Just surrender. It wasn't life she wanted anymore. It was peace. John felt the revolver tremble in his hand. Why? He asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. You don't even know me. She gave a faint shake of her head. Doesn't matter who you are. You'll do it cleaner than they would. He blinked. The soldiers, she murmured. They're close. You won't hear them yet, but you will. The night wind carried her words away into the darkness. Somewhere far off, a coyote cried. John turned toward the horizon, squinting into the black. The firelight was too weak to reach far, but he felt it, the faint vibration of hoofbeats in the ground. Someone was coming. He turned back to her, confusion and dread twisting in his gut. You mean the cavalry? She nodded once. They killed my brother. They'll kill me too. John's grip on his gun slackened slightly. If you're one of the raiders, they've got reason. Her eyes hardened. He wasn't a raider. He was trying to get our people across the river before the patrol found us. They shot him anyway. She looked down at the ground, her shoulders trembling once, then stilling again. He fell in the water. I went back for him. They saw me. They think I helped him escape. John stared at her, his thoughts spinning. Maybe she was lying. Maybe this was another Apache trick. But there was something in her voice that no liar could fake, something raw and broken that hit him deep. The image of his own wife flashed in his mind. Sarah, pale and weak, coughing blood in their small cabin while he stood helpless. The army had promised protection then too, but they never came. He'd buried her alone, with nothing but the wind to answer his prayers. Now, here was another soul the army wanted dead. And damn it all, he couldn't pull the trigger. The girl lifted her eyes again, meeting his. "You should go," she said softly. "If they find you with me, they'll hang you too." John exhaled slowly, glancing toward his horse. He could ride off, leave her to fate. He owed her nothing. Yet his boots refused to move. The fire crackled faintly, sending sparks spiraling into the night. "What's your name?" he asked finally. She hesitated, then said, "Naya." He nodded once. "I'm John." The faintest shadow of a smile touched her lips. "Then you'll be the last name I remember." The wind gusted again, stirring the ashes between them. Far in the distance, thunder rolled, not from the sky, but from the pounding hooves of the men who were coming for her. John felt his pulse quicken. He knew he was running out of time. And though his gun was still in his hand, he could no longer see her as a thief or an enemy. She was just a frightened girl, caught in the crossfire of a world that had forgotten mercy. And for the first time in years, John McCollum wondered if he still had any left in him.